You are about to listen to a story inspired by Wegainst, a creature collecting universe. To know more about Wegainst games, stories, books, and apps, access wegainst.com. Now, enjoy the journey where we take your imagination to another world.
Previously. Plushing Apex made me a target, and in Areth, a target doesn't walk free. Well, at least they didn't kill me. They tried to recruit me, and the guild woman, who had been helping me all this time, put me under her guild to cover the debt. In a warehouse room, the leader of another guild, I named her the Seated Woman. She offered me protection in exchange for training, work, and debt. The Seated Woman's guys dropped a sack on the floor and said that my trial would end by sunrise. The lock turned from the outside. It wasn't a dramatic click. It was a simple metal sound that said a door had become a rule. The warehouse room they'd put us in was low and mean. Wet boards, one hanging lamp, ropes and hooks on the walls like teeth. The air held damp wool, oil smoke, and the sour iron stink coming off the sack on the floor. Rain drummed the roof steady, patient, like it didn't care who won. The sponsor guild woman stood on the far side of the door with her hand on the latch for a second longer than she needed. Street coat under a bigger coat, missing finger scar catching the light. She didn't look at me like a friend. She looked at me like a debt she was tired of paying. "You don't get help," she said. My throat went tight. "You're leaving?" "I'm not allowed in," she replied. And that was the worst kind of truth. If I step through that door, it's not a test, it's a rescue. They want to know what you do when no one is watching. Apex pressed into my shin, warm and solid, spikes half lifted. He didn't tap. He held still, the way rope holds when it's about to take load. "What am I supposed to do?" I asked, and hated the thinness in my voice. The sponsor's eyes flicked to the plusher tucked in my jacket. "Not that," she said. "If you plush tonight, you buy a lifetime of trouble you can't afford." Her gaze slid to Apex. "And if he kills, you both pay." "How do I win?" "You don't," she said. "You last." The Seated Woman's voice came from somewhere behind her, calm as a ledger closing. "By sunrise," she called. "We'll see what's left." The sponsor didn't flinch at that. She only leaned closer, rain making her hair bead at the edges. "Listen," she murmured, low enough that the door swallowed half of it. "If you go down, curl around your hands. Protect your wrists. They take keepers by breaking the tools." Then she stepped back. The latch lifted. The door shut. The bolt slid home. And the room got smaller. Apex's breath changed. Not faster. Deeper. He looked at the sack like it was a person he'd met in an alley and didn't trust. The sack moved. Burlap bulged. A heavy scrape ran across the boards. The smell sharpened. Hot metal and old blood, like a forge chewing bone. Something inside tapped once, thick and deliberate. Apex's spikes went up hard. He answered with 3 fast taps, and the sound hit my ribs like a warning I didn't yet speak. The sack split along a seam that hadn't been cut. A red bulk slid out low, belly dragging, horns first, short, black, curved like snapped hooks, then a head full of teeth packed too tight. It didn't roar. It inhaled, deep and wet, and the breath made the lamp flame stretch sideways, as if the air itself wanted space. It looked at me. Not Apex. Me. My stomach dropped with a clarity I hated. Apex can hurt it, but it's here to break the keeper. The creature loaded its weight like a bull. Shoulder dipped, mass gathered. Then it surged. I moved before my fear could vote, boots skidding on slick boards, hands going for rope because rope is the only language I trust in panic. I threw my hook up without looking and felt it bite a beam with a dull thunk, and the line ran through my palms rough and wet, burning me awake. I snapped it across the creature's chest and yanked sideways to steal angle, to turn forward into wrong. It bit the rope. Teeth sank in. Fibers snapped. The line jerked, load shifting ugly, and my grip slipped half an inch. Apex launched. He hit the forelimb with his skull, crack, not bone, and bounced away before mass could turn into him. The red thing barely reacted. It drove forward anyway, shoulder first, like it meant to put me into the wall and keep going. I yanked the line sideways again, and the shoulder slammed into a post instead. Dust shook loose. The bean groaned. The lantern swung and made shadows jump like scared animals. The creature snapped at Apex, fast, clean, teeth closing inches from fur. Apex hopped back and tapped once. Tap. Stay. He was reminding me, no throat, no kill, no line crossed. My breath came thin and metallic. My taped gloves were already slick with sweat, and the burn under the tape pulsed like a heartbeat. It didn't rush again. It waited. That was worse. It let me pull first, let me spend strength first. Every time I yanked, it yanked back just enough to make my shoulders ache. It dragged the rope instead of fighting it, letting friction eat me. It used its mouth on the line like a tool, chewing at my control, not at Apex. Minutes turned into pain. The lamp hissed and dimmed and got fed again from somewhere outside the room. Rain kept drumming the roof. My boots slipped more than once. My throat stayed dry no matter how much I swallowed. Knife moment 1 hit early. The rope slipped through my glove, burned through tape, kissed skin. White hot. My hand jerked on instinct, and slack opened for one heartbeat. The red thing surged into that slack like it had been waiting all its life. It came low, horn and teeth aimed at my knee. I tried to shift, but my boots skated. The boards betrayed me. I hit the floor on one hip, hard enough that my vision flashed white at the edges, and the air left my lungs in a wet grunt. Apex slammed into the horn base, once, twice, precision over power, and the head rocked sideways just enough that the teeth missed leather by a finger width. A finger width mattered. I forced breath back into my chest and got up on one knee, pulling rope like it was the only thing keeping me from being dragged out of myself. The red thing didn't care about Apex's hits. It cared about my hands. It came in again, and I felt the room shrink to the distance between my wrist and its mouth. Long, long, short. I refused to give it that distance. I circled. I stole angle. I fed rope and took rope back, letting the line punish panic pulls the way it always does. When it drove forward, I gave it sideways. When it turned sideways, I gave it down. I used posts and nets and slick floor like they were part of the knot I was trying to set. Hours crawled by in ugly pieces. Apex's taps became a language I learned with my body. 1 tap, hold. 2 taps, switch. 3 taps, move. He never spoke, but the rhythm kept us from slipping into instinct. Knife moment 2 nearly broke the rule. Apex leapt high, teeth flashing, throat right there. He wanted to end it. I saw it in his red eyes. One bite, clean, and the night stops. "Down," I snapped. The word tore out of me like a rope snap. I yanked the line not at the red thing, but across Apex's path, breaking angle. Apex twisted midair, missed clean, landed shaking with restraint instead of blood. The red thing's body shifted in a way that felt like laughter, not sound, approval. It had seen the crack. By deep night, my arms shook on every correction. The rope burned through tape in 2 places. My fingers went numb. My shoulders trembled on every pull. The red thing stopped pretending it wanted the door. It only wanted me. It pinned my boot once with its pad. Heavy. Final. Teeth came down slow enough to be cruel, and fear went cold in my gut. I dropped my hips, let the rope go slack on purpose, then snapped it tight at a new angle. Its forward mass turned sideways, and its own weight tore its pad free. It stumbled half a step. Half a step was everything. Apex hit the jaw hinge with a crack that made the head whip. He hit the horn base again. The slick boards betrayed the red thing just enough. It went down on one side with a thud that rattled my teeth. I moved in. Too slow. I felt it before I understood it. The red thing wasn't falling, it was rolling, using the down like a trap. Its head snapped toward me, and in that blink, I saw teeth and weight and certainty. Apex saw it too. He jumped between us without hesitation. The bite that was meant for my wrist landed in Apex's shoulder. The sound was wet. Wrong. Real. Apex screamed, and my stomach dropped so hard it felt like it tried to leave my body. The red thing shook once. Small, efficient, like it knew exactly how to ruin muscle without killing. And Apex hit the boards and skidded, fur raked, breath hitching. My hands went stupid. For half a heartbeat, everything in me wanted the plusher. End it. Claim it. Stop the night. I didn't. I couldn't. Not with Apex on the floor and the room already full of watchers in my head. The red thing turned its eyes back to me, like it had just proven a point. Keepers break when you touch what they love. My throat tasted like blood. I yanked rope anyway. I threw my weight into the line, tried to pin the head, tried to steal angle, but my arms were cooked and my grip was failing, and the red thing was too heavy and too patient. It dragged me a foot across the boards like I was a loose coil. My knee hit a nailhead. Pain flashed white. My hands opened. The rope slid free. And in that moment, the room became honest. The red thing surged, not to kill, to finish. It slammed me into the wall with its shoulder, hard enough to knock the air out of my lungs, and the impact rang through my ribs like a bell. My head hit wood. Stars burst behind my eyes. I slid down the wall into a heap, trying to curl around my hands like the sponsor said, but my arms didn't obey cleanly anymore. Apex tried to stand. He got halfway up, shaking, and fell again, breath tearing. The red thing stood over us. It didn't bite. It didn't roar. It tapped the boards once. Tap. Then it stepped away, slow and deliberate, and settled in the corner like a judge sitting down after a verdict. It watched us with those narrowed eyes, calm now, like it had decided we weren't worth finishing. That was worse than being killed. Time blurred. The lamp flame shrank. Rain softened into a steady drizzle. My body went cold in waves, then hot, then cold again. I lay with my cheek on wet boards, tasting oil and blood, listening to Apex's breathing hitch like it was counting down to something. Somewhere outside, harbor sounds changed. Fewer shouts, more chains. Morning routine, waking up like nothing happened. Then the bolt slid. The lock turned. The door opened. Cold daylight spilled in, sharp and clean, and it made the room look even worse. Rope lines scattered like broken thoughts, gouges in the boards, blood in thin smears. My hands raw and swollen. Apex curled wrong on his side, with his shoulder rising and falling too fast. Boots stepped in, not rushing, judging. The seated woman entered first, ledger in her eyes, even if it wasn't in her hands. The sponsor followed behind her, face tight, guilt and anger braided together. Two others stayed in the doorway, like they were there to keep the room from spilling. The seated woman looked at the corner. The red thing was sitting there, calm as a problem contained. She looked at me, then at Apex. Her mouth didn't move much when she spoke. "Broken," she said, like she was writing a word. The sponsor's jaw flexed. She didn't look at me for long. The seated woman crouched beside Apex, not touching him with her bare hand. She used a tool, flat metal with a hooked tip, to lift fur, check the bite, check the damage. Apex flinched and tried to rise, a low snarl vibrating his chest, but he couldn't get his legs under him. He tapped once, weak. Tap. Stay. It wrecked me. The seated woman straightened. "He can't walk," she said. "And you can't keep what you can't carry." My throat scraped. "He's mine." "Claim is yours," she agreed, calm. "Custody isn't." The word custody hit like a punch because it was so clean, so practical. Not theft, not betrayal. Accounting. One of the doorway figures stepped in with a padded lockbox, iron-latched, stamped with a guild seal. The sight of it made Apex's fur lift in panic. He tried to crawl toward me. I tried to move. My arms didn't answer. The sponsor finally spoke, voice rough. "Don't fight them," she said. "Not now." "Don't," I croaked, and it came out like a broken rope sound. The seated woman looked down at me like I was a load she'd decided to shift. "You failed the first run," she said, "which means you don't walk out into daylight with him." Her gaze slid to the corner where the red thing sat. "That one taught you the rule you didn't want. Keepers are softer than Wegos." Apex made a low sound and dragged himself a few inches anyway, teeth bared, ready to bite anyone who came close. The seated woman didn't flinch. "If he bites now," she said, eyes on Apex, "you lose him for longer." That stopped my breath. Apex froze, not because he obeyed her, because he heard the weight in the words. The sponsor crouched beside me for the first time since the door closed. Her eyes were glossy but hard. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and it wasn't comfort. It was a promise of what she'd do next. The seated woman pointed. "Plush him," she said to one of her people. They approached Apex with a tool I hadn't seen before, thin, metal, ringed. Not a plusher, something built for control. Apex bristled and tried to snap, but the tool clicked near his head and the air around him tightened. Not a dome, something smaller and meaner. Apex's muscles went rigid for a heartbeat, and then his body softened like a puppet with cut strings. He dropped into plush. The silence of it hurt more than the scream. They lifted him like an object, not careless, professional. The lockbox opened with a soft metal sigh. They set Apex inside. The lid closed. My chest went hollow. The seated woman looked at me one last time. "You want him back," she said, like she was stating whether. "Yes," I whispered, and the word shook. "Then you earn him back," she said. "Or you take him back." Her eyes narrowed a fraction. "But if you take him back, understand this. You won't be taking a toy. You'll be starting a war you can't unstart." They carried the lockbox toward the door. Apex didn't tap anymore. He couldn't. The sponsor stood, watching them go, shoulders squared like she was counting steps. When the door shut again and the cold daylight got cut off, she leaned down to me and spoke so close I felt her breath. "Don't cry," she said. "Save it." I stared at the spot where the lockbox had been, my hands twitching uselessly, my wrist seal cold and heavy. My voice came out low and flat, like a knot you set with hate instead of calm. "I'm going to take him back."
This story isn't over just yet. To be continued in the next episode.